Forward here, guys. So you're all very welcome to the webinar. So today we're going to be talking about lead scoring in HubSpot, and just basically how that works. So for anybody that doesn't know, I'm Leslie, and I work here at Exemplify. So what we're going to be going through today is basically what is lead scoring in HubSpot for anybody that hasn't used the feature before. How are we able to set our criteria in HubSpot for how we actually want to score different contacts? How we can use lists then in HubSpot to kind of see the information that we want when we set that criteria. Once we've kind of set our criteria then and people are starting to be scored, how we're able to automate some processes in HubSpot with that data. And then also using kind of scoring system to create a report just to see certain leads more clearly. And then at the end, if anybody has any questions, they can just let me know. So just jumping into what actually is lead scoring in HubSpot. So it's basically a way to analyze and rank leads according to their suitability and their importance for your business. So this is going to be different for each business. So there isn't a particular criteria that we could necessarily recommend for everybody, because some people in their business might use, for example, a particular business size. If a business size is 10 to 100, that might be suitable and might want to give a contact a score of 10 for that, whereas a different business might be targeting people who has a business size of over 1,000. So that's going to be suitable for them. So really, in terms of how to set that criteria, that's where you're going to talk to people within your business and also customers just to find that out. So in terms of what type of criteria we can actually use in HubSpot, so there are really any of the properties that are available in HubSpot. So that could be certain pages that people have viewed on your website that you find very valuable. Any of interactions that people have had with emails. So if they have opened or clicked links in your marketing emails, if somebody fits a certain persona that's very valuable to you, you might give them a higher score than somebody else. If somebody is a member of a particular list that you've created, you can use this as well. Contacts that are associated to deals. So you might decide that whenever somebody enters the deal pipeline for the first time, that you give them a particular score. If you host any content on your websites which require people to submit forms or a form to book a demo, once again, you can use this as your criteria. And some other examples might be if you're getting HubSpot for the first time and you want to import in bulk contacts, and you've already segmented those contacts into certain lists, you might want to give a particular score to people on one import in comparison to another. And any other custom objects or custom properties that you create, you can segment that as well. So now I'm just going to jump across into HubSpot and basically show you guys where you can do this if you haven't done it before. So when you jump into HubSpot, just go to your settings. And then you're going to scroll down to the properties. And the HubSpot score is a contact property. So if you just search for score, it's going to come up, and it's this one here. So this is where basically you can set the positive and the negative score criteria for all of your contacts. And you don't have to worry if you have never set this up before, because whenever you set the score, it's basically going to apply it to all of your contacts that are in HubSpot. So that's really useful. So in terms of how we can do this, so when you select your criteria, it's going to bring up all of the different options that you have to choose from. So these can be really simple things like properties that you have in your contacts. So if I choose some, for example, if I use like a particular wait list and they're on that wait list, I might take that as yes. And I'm going to apply that filter and then choose the score that I want people to get if they're on that wait list. And I'm going to call that 2. Then I can add some more criteria here. So I'm going to say, for example, if company properties, if there's one company in particular that I really value, let's say that's Exemplify. Got that right? I could apply that and give that a score of 10. So any contact who works for Exemplify will be given that additional score. I could also enter some deal properties. So for if you value once people get to the first stage in a deal pipeline and you want to use that, you could give them, let's say, another score of 5. You could say if their email activity. So if they're, let's see here. If they've clicked any links in your email, so you could say is greater than or equal to 2. So when they've opened and clicked 2 links, you might want to give them an additional 5. And we'll just do 1 or 2 more here, showing some other examples. So let's say they have submitted any form on your website and you find that very valuable. Give them an additional 10. And let's say you run some ad campaigns. You are also able to use this. So if anybody has come from a particular ad and you want to set that criteria, you could do that as well. Oops. So let's say Facebook ad type is any of business. Apply. You could give them another 10. So you can see how you can basically continue to add scores based on the criteria that you find valuable to your business. If there's things that you don't find valuable, you can also set this out here as well. So for example, if you have somebody who is in the closed lost stage of your pipeline, you already know that these people don't have any interest in interacting with the business anymore. So you might give them a minus score of 25. So it really brings that down. So whenever you filter all of your contacts by their score, they're not going to show up here, or they'll be quite low. So these are some examples of criteria you can set. So when I save that now, you're basically going to see in a minute that any of the contacts that we have in this demo portal of ours are going to update. So it might take a second here, but basically these are going to update in a minute. There'll be a couple of contacts that will come through, and I can show you what that looks like. Oops. Just jumping across back in here. So in terms of lead scoring, so why is it actually important? So whenever you set your score, basically, and you are able to filter by contacts by the highest score, you're really allowing your sales team to then focus on leads which are of the highest value to your business. So all of the leads with, say, a score of maybe 60 or 70 are going to rank to the top. And if they're not already in your deal pipeline, sales teams are going to be able to focus on just those leads. It's also going to really improve the relationship between sales and marketing, because once this is set out, marketing knows that things like the emails that they send, the content that they create for your website, you can add all of these to your scoring system. So they're going to know, if I send out really good emails, people are going to interact with that. More contacts are going to build on their score, which is going to be helpful for the sales team. So it's really great to have the visibility there. In terms of cost savings, so that's more also related to sales focusing on leads which are of the highest value, not sales just jumping into HubSpot, looking at a list of contacts and just kind of picking out different people to call an email. This, they can say, I'm not going to contact anybody that has a score below, say, 40. So they're just focusing on people that have been interacting with the business already. And that goes hand in hand, kind of sales focusing on contacts. In terms of reaching out at the correct time, they're not contacting people that haven't really had any interaction with your business or haven't reached a certain score that you find is of value, basically. In terms of what marketing and sales, how they can use this as well. So marketing can basically create lists off the back of people that have hit a certain score. So you can say, you can create a list in HubSpot, and that list can just show contacts who have a score of between 10 and 40. And when you save that list, then marketing will be able to come in and say, this type of email is suitable for people who have been interacting with the business. So they're not just sending a marketing email out in bulk to everybody. because there might be many people on that list that have never been on the website before. They haven't filled out a form. They don't fit the criteria that you've set for your business. So they can really kind of use that as well. This is kind of, oops, sorry. So this is kind of like a template here, which you could use for your scoring system. So if you're looking at, say, between 0 and 100, you could say that if anybody has a score between 0 and 10, you don't need to engage with them yet because they really haven't done anything. You could say that if they're between the 11 and 20, you could use the contacts or the prospects that are on this list to target them with maybe retargeting ads on LinkedIn, for example, or Facebook, or you could use them in your marketing emails. Once you say reach a score of 21 to 40 and you've included the property of the persona in your criteria, you could basically use this to say, I've created a list here of all of my contacts between 21 and 40, and the persona is this, and send them an email just to them. So you can kind of see how you can start to use scoring to be more more focused in the emails that you send. And then you could say maybe once a contact reaches a score of 41 or more, it's at this point that you decide to pass it on to sales. So sales can set up a view or a list in their HubSpot account, and it'll show all of the contacts that are assigned to them who have a score of 41 or higher. So they're really just focusing on contacts that are important to them. So you're going to see now in HubSpot that the scores have updated here. So there's not going to be too many in our demo portal, but you can see that this has started to to populate here. So people can come in on a daily basis. They could filter by this property here once they add it to their view, and they can look at all of the contacts that have been interacting most with the business. In terms of creating a list, this is where you could come to your lists in HubSpot. And I could say I want to create a list of score is between, say, 10 and 20. And this is an active list, so contacts will continue to be added from it. So I could come in here then and I could say, look for the HubSpot score property. And I could say HubSpot is greater than or equal to 10. And oops, and I can say score is less than or equal to 20. And that will kind of show me those contacts that are in that view of 10 to 20. And if this is a score that is valuable to you, then you can come in and look at this list and contacts will continue to be added from it. And then maybe this could be a list that sales work on or marketing works on for their email marketing. So just jumping into kind of how to automate some of these processes now in HubSpot. So an option that you could do is if you want to set out the life cycle stages in HubSpot based on score, you can do that as well. So I know that everybody is going to have their own way of kind of determining what stage in the life cycle a person could be at. But an example could be that when a contact comes in for the first time and they reach a score of 10, they're upgraded to a lead. When they reach a score of 20 or 30, they upgrade to a marketing qualified lead. And you could say when they reach a score of 40, that's when they become a sales qualified lead. And at this point, you could then pass on these leads to the sales team. So what this looks like is you could create a workflow like this, where the enrollment criteria could be set as HubSpot score is greater than or equal to 40, and their current life cycle stage is any of subscriber, marketing qualified lead, contact, or prospect. So these are some of the life cycle stage that we've just built out in our demo portal. And what you could do then is say that, so once they've reached a score of 40 or higher, that you set the life cycle stage to a sales qualified lead. And then you could also follow this up with doing like a task for somebody. So if there's somebody in particular that manages sales, you could come in here and you could create a task for that person. And you could say new SQL, for example. And you could basically be able to assign that to whoever the salesperson is, and they'll be notified of that each time. So I'm going to assign this one to Ed. So if this was the type of process we were using, as soon as contacts continue to be engaged based on the criteria that we set, once they reach 40, they become a sales qualified lead, and Ed gets that notification that there's a new SQL, and he can follow up with that person based on the task. So that's one way that you're able to automate the process. I've seen some other instances where if people want to create their own custom property in HubSpot that isn't necessarily the lifecycle stage, but they have their own naming convention, you could break it up even further, that when somebody reaches a score of, say, 30 to 35, 35 to 40, you have a different naming convention for each one. So basically what you could do then is you could go into your contact view in HubSpot, and you'd be able to filter by that custom property that you've created, and basically see, say, all of your leads that you say are interested, that are engaged, that are highly engaged. And it's just a really good way to understand where all of the contacts in your database are currently at in terms of their engagement with the business. So then into the reporting. So there's obviously some reporting that you can do on this as well. So jumping in here to our reports, I'm going to go to our dashboards here. And I've just created like a little dashboard as an example here. But some of the reporting that you could do is, if you want to basically break down, let me show you here. You can just include in the filters the HubSpot score. So you could say, for example, if you just wanted to see, if you weren't using that automation like I showed you as an example, and you just wanted to see all of the contacts in your database that have a HubSpot score that is greater than 5, and you wanted to see where those contacts currently sit in your pipeline, that's where you could see it. So of course, in this example, you're going to see that most of them are in as an active customer. But this is just an example of how you can start to actually report on your contacts by their engagement with the business. So you could create multiple reports then. For example, if I wanted to clone this report and say greater than 20. And I can jump in here then, and I'm going to customize this. And I'm going to say HubSpot score is greater than 20. And I'm going to update that. So you can see how then you can start to create multiple reports for different stages, and just see that overview of where everybody is currently at in your database and at what stage that kind of fits for them. So that's most of the kind of basics on lead scoring in our system. But I guess I'd love to open up to any questions that people have now for 10 or 15 minutes. Any questions that they have on kind of the how this all works and everything. In the chat. Oh, great. See, can you do custom fields for adding things like sales methodology? So in terms of custom fields, would this be being able to create like a custom field in HubSpot and use that as part of your criteria? Is that what you mean, Pete?
Kind of, right? You were scoring things based on deal name, company, whatever else. They're all predefined fields, right? Like,
yeah.
As a sales coach, I training people on sales methodologies, right? It's like, can you put in like budget, authority, need, timing, right? And make them custom fields and
Yeah.
score appropriately like you showed.
Yeah, definitely. So like I could come in here, and if I go to my properties, and I'll just do one as an example here to show you how this might work. So you could go and say, I call this budget. Put in some data here as an example. And I could say, drop down select. So let's say budget is, 100 to 1,000. 1,000 to 10,000. And let's say I save that here. I could then jump across to my score, and I could then search for that property that I just created, and that can be used in here as well. So you don't just have
Got it. So they're created as individual fields on the deal, and then you can score them. Got it.
That's
Yeah,
it
that makes
exactly.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
cool.
if somebody fits that, you could give them a really high score of 30. So you can really use any type of criteria that is known to HubSpot, any custom properties that you want to create, and you can use all of them. Right.
Sure.
Any other questions there that people have?
Is it possible to get a breakdown of the scoring? For example, let's say we've got 10 different properties that we're using to create our score. Are we able to see the breakdown of that? So let's say for our company or our contacts that have got scores of 41 plus, we might see that they're consistently scoring well in the email interaction. Is that something you can easily
That's a
grab
good
in a report?
question.
That's a question.
Yeah, it's a good one to see if they're continuing to score. It's not something that I've actually seen before. Usually, yeah, score just continues to build over time, but this is where you could almost like you could create a custom property in HubSpot, and you could basically, if somebody fits a score of say 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, you could give in either fives or tens a different name based on a property that you have. So that example, if I said like somebody is they're interested in the business, you could flag somebody as being interested if they're 5 to 10, then they're engaged if they're 10 to 15, they're highly engaged if they're 15 to 20. You could set those naming conventions out for the entire 0 to 100 or 0 to 50 if you wanted. And what you would be able to do is you could see the amount of time that somebody's spent within a particular stage in that custom property that you create, for example. So you can't see how often somebody is scoring, but you could create a custom property which basically is able to bundle people into different stages and then see how frequently they're moving along those kind of stages, if that makes sense. So
Actually,
yeah.
One thing just while you're answering that, there is one option that you do. Actually, if you just go to the HubSpot score property there, yeah, just click edit. You can there's a tool there at the very top called, just scroll up a bit up to test score criteria. So if you then if you search for edit Exemplify or just get somebody with a score, this will give you the breakdown of what their score is. So you'll be able to see there is 0. Let's try somebody else. Let's try edit Exemplify.
The one with your email address. There you go.
That's it. Yep, that one there. Test that. That will be able to show you which criteria they've met. So Ed has a score here of 25, and you can see that he's met that criteria, but he hasn't, the red ones are the ones that haven't been met. So at the moment, I don't know anything about I'm sure you could, in a report, possibly build this out, but off the top of my head, I wouldn't know exactly where to go, but that's a great challenge there for us to figure out. But that's, if you wanted to go and look at one individual person, that's a place where you could go.
Perfect. So just one more time just to get to that. So we go to HubSpot score.
Yeah, sure. So just pop into score here, and then at the very top, test score criteria. And then search for somebody in there.
And you'll find the property in the settings properties tool.
There you go.
Perfect.
Nice.
Awesome. One other thing as well there is if you just want to show when you create a property, you can also create custom score properties. So instead of just being limited to the HubSpot score, so if you go to create property.
Oh yeah, you could, yeah.
Yes.
So
just show people through that.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you do want to, you can use your own property. You don't have to use the HubSpot one. You could create multiple properties if you want to, and call it whatever you want, and basically choose the type of property to be one that scores people. And then here you can basically build out your criteria as well. So if you wanted to have a different scoring system for people that are in your deal pipeline versus say people that are just a lead or a prospect, you could essentially have two different types of systems to score those contacts because they're so different. So you could have one which maybe just focuses on like marketing, getting people from when they first enter your database to kind of building them up to maybe book a demo or move on to sales. And then you could have a different property which calculates score at a later date. It's completely up to you. Yeah. Any other questions that people have? No. Okay, no problem at all. So our next webinar will be in about a month's time. And this one is going to be looking at sequences in HubSpot and how people can build out sequences and work them in HubSpot. If anybody wants to book a demo with us and learn a little bit more about Exemplify, you can scan the QR code here to book in a demo. But yeah, thanks everybody for attending. And unless anybody has any more questions that they'd like to ask, we'll see you on the next one. Okay.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Ed.
Cheers, Pete.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.